welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and I post weekly videos here on YouTube all about stylish, sustainable living. Today we're going to talk about two of my favorite topics and how they can coexist together: plants and cats. I get a lot of questions on Instagram about living with cats and plants. There's a lot of information out there. A lot of people are nervous about having plants in their home when it comes to their cats. So these are my 6 tips for living with cats and plants harmoniously. Tip number 1 is to introduce the plants into your home slowly. I wanted to see how the cats were going to interact with them. Would they want to bite a lot of the plants? Would they knock them over? Because we had never had them before, so I wasn't sure. You're going to start to notice which ones start to appeal to your cats and which ones don't. In my case, my one cat, if he ever ate a plant, he would typically just throw it up right away, and so I could see exactly what plant was appealing to him in his pile of bark that I had to clean up. Well, this was a super fun exercise for me, chasing around the cats to clean up their barf piles around the house. It does teach you which types of plants your cats are most drawn to. In my case, I've realized that my cats really like plants that have this sort of texture, where it's kind of like, it's almost like cat grass, where it's like a little bit stringy, a little bit palmy. I believe this is a spider plant. But like we have a ponytailed palm. They loved munching on that one. This one they definitely munched on. You can see some of the dead leaves here at the end. As well as any type of like spindly cactus type plant. Like I have a pencil plant and they loved it. I had to put it on a high shelf because they were just munching it like crazy, and it is not safe for cats to eat that plant. So they kept throwing it up and I was like, they like this plant. I better put this somewhere else. So just pay attention to what your cats are doing as you're introducing plants into your house, and you can just really kind of understand how this interaction between your two little critters is gonna go. Tip number 2 is to buy non-toxic, pet-safe plants at the beginning. There's a ton of information out there about different species of plants that are pet safe and which ones are not. And I did spend a lot of time at the beginning researching that. I wanted to make sure that we only got non-toxic plants because I was like, oh my god, I don't want to kill my cats with these toxic plants. Once I realized that my cats are pretty tolerant of plants and mostly just leave them alone and are not interested in them, then I started to introduce other species that maybe are poisonous or can cause some problems. My cats continued to leave them alone. So I was really lucky in that sense. I can have a wide variety of plants in the house that don't interest the cats at all. A few of my favorite non-toxic plant species that I've purchased over this past year. The first one is pillias. Oh my gosh, they're the cutest plants in the world. I love them so much. And my first one has really just absolutely thrived in this apartment and has sprouted tons of babies. I've propagated it a bunch of times and my cats couldn't care less about it. The next one is ferns. I love ferns. They're easy to grow and they don't require a ton of light or a ton of care. They're pretty low maintenance and they're pet safe. Another family of plants that you'll often see recommended for pet owners are calatheas or prayer plants. These are the ones that kind of like move a lot when the sun goes down. They go up and down. Calatheas, while I like some aspects of them, are a more high maintenance plant. So if you're just getting started with plant ownership, I'm not sure I would recommend these right away. I've had the most trouble making my calatheas happy. Tip number 3 is to give your cats their own plant area. This way you can train them that these are their plants. This is where you can go when you want to interact with plants or eat plants or lick plants or do any of the things that cats like to do with plants. So our cats have their own little dedicated plant area that's right by their food. It's really easy for them to understand, these are my plants. In that area we gave them cat grass, which they love. They munch on it all the time. And then we also give them catnip. Like a couple of times per week we'll bring it in from outside and let them chomp on the catnip. They do kind of go cuckoo pants when they eat it, so we don't like to have them have that all the time. They'll just strip the whole plant and eat the whole thing. How we trained our cats to kind of know that these plants were for them is that anytime that I saw them kind of like rubbing up against another plant or like licking another plant or like trying to eat the leaves of it, I would take them and carry them over and put them directly in front of it. I also used a spray bottle to kind of spray them to punish them when they were interacting with plants that they shouldn't interact with. That doesn't work for all cats. Like one of our cats is really responsive to that method. The other one like opens his mouth and like tries to catch the water. So not really an effective technique. But do whatever you've done in the past, kind of teach your cats little tricks or little behavior changes with the plants as well. Tip number 4 is to create different heights and areas in your apartment where you can put different kinds of plants. As you learn what your cats are doing, what kind of plants they're interested in, which ones they might be bothersome, you can put them in different areas. You can play with the height of your space, with wall shelves, with hanging plants. This way, if there is a species or a certain family of plants that your cats are really drawn to, you can keep them away from them. We're quite lucky to have this big bookshelf behind us, so any plants that I don't want them to interact with or that I know that they like to chomp on, munch on, whatever, I put those on the top of the bookshelf. And if you put them up there, you know, right when you get there, your cats might not even notice that you've bought it. Tip number 5 is to avoid plant knockovers. I don't know about you, but my cats can get a little wild sometimes when they're in their sort of like crazy mode. They're zoomies and they run around pretty quickly, pretty aggressively, and I try to make sure that none of my plants are like lined up in a big line or too top heavy where they're going to all like knock over together. My one cat totally lacks spatial awareness of any kind. He falls off stuff all the time. So I need to make sure that my plants are never too close to an edge of a table or a shelf or something like that. Cleaning up a fallen over plant and all the dirt on the ground is a huge mess. It makes it really unenjoyable to live with cats and plants together, so avoid that at all costs. So I have a tendency to kind of like overweight the bottom of my plants. I'll sometimes put them in like a bigger pot than maybe they need, or I'll put stones at the bottom of the basket or the pot to like really weigh it down to make sure that it's not gonna tip over if one of the cats runs into it. Thankfully, until now, we've only had one plant knockover, and it was actually my fault, not the cat's. So good, that was a good tip. Tip number 6 is to have patience and acceptance when it comes to coexisting in your space with cats and plants. Plants do have quite an adjustment period, exactly like cats. Plants have to adapt to the space that you're living in, to the new light conditions, to the new heating conditions, so be patient with that process. I also think it's important to accept that, you know, when you're coexisting with cats and plants, there are going to be little times where your cat munches on a leaf that they're not supposed to. They just maybe decided they wanted to that day, it was in their mood. So I have plenty of plants that have just a tiny little like teeth puncture mark in the leaf, and yeah, I don't love it, but I accept it. It's part of life. So you have to kind of have some flexibility and acceptance when it comes to these slight imperfections that are gonna come up. So those are my 6 tips for living harmoniously with cats and plants. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, that would be great. And please comment if you are also living with cats and plants. Are there any tips that I missed that have really worked well for you? Or anything that you found that is especially helpful when it comes to harmoniously coexisting with cats and plants? Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to sharing more videos about sustainable living.